dear listener, to Jade Fox Tales, where ancient myths become the dreams into which you softly descend. I am most grateful for your company this evening and for the quiet moment you have chosen to spend here. Wherever you may be as you listen, perhaps seated peacefully with a warm cup beside you, or already nestled beneath the covers as the lamps grow dim and the house grows still. Allow yourself to arrive gently in this moment. Tonight's tale carries us to the ancient lands of India, where the birth of a great emperor was foretold by a most unusual sign, the quiet appearance of a sacred white elephant. It is a legend of destiny, wisdom, and a gentle power that sometimes arrives in the most unexpected form. A story that has traveled slowly across the centuries, passing from voice to voice until at last it finds its way to this quiet evening. And should sleep come to you before the tale has fully unfolded, that too is perfectly well. You need not listen to every word tonight. Simply allow the sound of the story to accompany you for a while, and if rest should find you along the way, you may drift peacefully with it. But before our tale begins, let us allow the mind and body to grow calm. For now, let this be your hour, an hour to grow still, to breathe a little more deeply, and to set aside, if only for a little while, whatever the day may have placed upon your shoulders. The world moves quickly during the daylight hours. Thoughts gather, worries follow close behind, and the mind seldom finds a moment of true rest. But this is not such a moment. Here, there is nowhere you must hurry, nothing you must accomplish, and nothing that asks anything of you at all. Only the quiet rhythm of your breathing and the gentle hush of evening settling softly around you. So let us begin with a slow breath in. Draw the air in calmly and comfortably, and now allow it to drift out again, slow and easy. Once more, breathing in peacefully and exhaling even more slowly. With each gentle breath, feel your body settling more comfortably, your thoughts growing quieter as the small concerns of the day begin to fade into the distance. Perhaps your shoulders soften just a little. Perhaps the muscles of your face grow relaxed, and your body sinks comfortably into the place where you rest. Simply allow the calm of the evening to find you, for the old stories have a curious way of doing just that. They travel softly across time, carried by quiet voices lantern light, and patient tellers, until at last they arrive beside a listening ear. And tonight, one such tale waits for us, a quiet legend passed gently from age to age, until it reaches this peaceful moment. And should these stories bring you comfort tonight, I should be most delighted if you choose to return another evening, when another quiet tale waits patiently to be told. But for now, dear listener, let your eyes close if they have not already, and settle comfortably as tonight's story begins. In the verdant lands of Magadha, where rivers wove silver threads through the emerald plains, and temples gleamed beneath the sun, there reigned a sovereign named Ashoka, a ruler esteemed for wisdom and justice. His court was filled with learned men and careful advisers, yet even among the brightest minds, there arose moments which demanded more than law or counsel, moments that tested patience, perception, and the heart itself. It was during the season of the great monsoon, when clouds gathered like a brooding tapestry upon the horizon, that a most extraordinary event unfolded within the palace stables. Among the throng of ordinary elephants, there was born a calf unlike any other. His hide gleamed like fresh ivory, untouched by blemish, and his eyes shone with a gentle intelligence that seemed almost human in its depth. The attendants whispered amongst themselves, fearful to speak too lightly, for they sensed that destiny had walked silently into their midst. The news quickly reached the Emperor. Ashoka, seated amidst his council in the great hall, received the announcement with quiet composure, though a flicker of curiosity was lit. His eyes shined. He summoned the astrologers and scholars, learned men versed in the ways of omens and celestial influence, to examine this remarkable creature. They murmured among themselves, consulting sacred texts and casting careful glances at the heavens. At last, they pronounced that the elephant was a symbol of virtue, a celestial messenger sent to guide the ruler and his kingdom towards prosperity tempered with compassion. As the days passed, the young elephant grew in size and strength, yet he moved with a grace and gentleness that inspired awe amongst those who beheld him. Farmers from the surrounding villages, who came to deliver tributes and offerings, paused in wonder as the elephant ambled past, his ivory tusks glinting in the sun, and his broad feet leaving soft impressions upon the earth. Even courtiers, habited to marvel, could not suppress a whispering admiration. One tranquil evening, as the sun dipped beneath the distant hills and painted the sky in hues of crimson and amber, Ashoka ventured into the palace gardens. The white elephant, sensing his presence, approached without hesitation. Lowering his trunk in a gesture of deference, he regarded the emperor with eyes that seemed to hold both wisdom and inquiry. Ashoka extended a hand, feeling the steady warmth of the creature's breath. In that moment, a thought arose within his mind, quiet yet insistent. A ruler's true strength lies not in the way of law or the sharpness of swords, but in the gentle governance of hearts and the care with which he tends to the lives entrusted to him. From that hour onward, the elephant became a silent companion in the emperor's life, a reminder that virtue is nurtured not through command alone, but through observation, patience, and the fostering of goodness in the smallest details. They followed Ashoka to the great courts, to temples and gardens, and even along the riverbanks where the people gathered for festivals and prayers. Wherever he went, a sense of calm seemed to descend, softening anger, quieting disgust, and inspiring awe. And though the palace walls enclosed wealth and power, it was the presence of the gentle ivory-skinned elephant that reminded all, from the highest minister to the lowest servant, that greatness may often arrive unannounced, and that a quiet lesson of patience and compassion are as vital as the might of armies. Yet the tale was only beginning, for the monsoon cloud, though they poured life upon the land, also carried the weight of challenge and the stirring of fate. In the months to come, the white elephant would guide Ashoka through trials that would test the limits of wisdom, the depths of mercy, and the very foundation of a ruler's heart. And thus the legend of the white elephant, gentle, luminous, and wise, began its unfolding. A story not of conquest alone, but of virtue, reflection, and the quiet strength that shapes both kings and kingdoms. As the monsoon's rains waned, and the rivers of Maghala swelled with the generous gift of the heavens, Kaifeng-like festivities took hold across the countryside, though in India they were known by the songs and rhythms of local custom. In the city of Pataliputra, the capital, preparations for the great festival of rivers commenced, with a bustle that seemed to awaken even the ancient stones of the palace. The streets, lined with bright gloss and fragrant blooms, thrummed with the rhythm of drums and the lilting notes of flutes. Merchants called out their wares, children darted between fountains, and the smell of fresh food and incense mingled upon the warm air. Amid this lively scene, the white elephant was brought forth to participate in the ceremonial procession. His pale hide gleamed with a soft luminescence under the morning sun, and delicate garlands of jasmine and marigold adorned his majestic frame. Emperor Ashoka, mounted upon a horse of silken black, rode alongside, his eyes quietly observant, noting the effect his companion had upon the people. The festivals began with a gentle ritual at the banks of the Ganges. Water poured from gilded vessels into the river, carrying prayers for fertility, peace, and the prosperity of the realm. As the crowd murmured blessings and hymns, the elephant stepped forward, placing his broad, padded feet upon the wet sand with a dignity that commanded silence. Even the most voracious children paused, sensing the solemnity imbued in the gentle movements of this extraordinary creature. Ashoka's mind, ever thoughtful, wandered as he watched the scene. The elephant, thought incapable of speech, seemed to offer counsel in the stillness of his presence. The ruler recalled his early days upon the throne, when ambition and youthful certainty had urged him towards strict decrees and the swift punishment of those who erred. Yet now, guided by the silent wisdom of his companion, he began to comprehend the deeper currents of his governance. That patience, observation, and the subtle cultivation of virtue among his people were more potent than edicts enforced by fear. Later in the day, a messenger approached the emperor with troubling news. A small village along the northern reaches had suffered from a sudden storm. Crops were damaged, granaries threatened, and the villagers sought aid. Ashoka's brows furrowed, yet the white elephant nudged gently against his arm, as though to remind him that no matter the grandeur of this place, responsibilities began with compassion. Without delay, the emperor dispatched provisions, sending coaches laden with rice, cloth, and tools to repair both homes and spirits of the affected villagers. But Ashoka himself insisted upon visiting the village, bringing the white elephant alongside him. The journey, though long, was unhurried. Along the way, Ashoka observed the reactions of his people. They paused in their labors to greet the emperor and the extraordinary creature beside him. The elephant's calm gaze, so luminous and steady, inspired trust. Children ran to touch him, and farmers knelt in respect, for they recognized that the ruler who traveled in empathy, accompanied by a message of virtue, governed not with the harshness of law alone, but with the authority of example. At the village, the emperor found not only the destruction wrought by the storm, but also the resilience of human effort. villagers had gathered their scattered belongings, erected temporary shelters, and shared what meager provisions remained. Ashoka, observing their diligence and spirit, felt a swell of admiration, tempered with humility. The white elephant, now guided carefully among the villagers, allowed them to offer him flowers and blessings. Though unable to speak, the elephant's demeanor seemed to encourage the people, teaching by presence alone the values of patience, courage, and harmony. That evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, painting the sky in gold and rose, Ashoka stood beside the riverbank with the white elephant. Water ripped gently around his feet, reflecting the fading light. He spoke softly, as one might to a confidant. Though the storms may rise, the spirit of the people remains steadfast. This gentle companion is the measures of a kingdom's strength. The elephant, with a subtle tilt of his head, seemed to acknowledge the truth of these words. In the quiet communion, the emperor understood that greatness lay not merely in conquest or statute, but in the fostering of trust, empathy, and wisdom among those entrusted to his care. As night fell, the festival concluded with lanterns floating upon the river, casting a gentle glow upon the waters and the faces of all who gazed upon them. Ashoka returned to the palace with the elephant at his side, the city still buzzing with celebration, yet touched by a profound unspoken lesson, that virtue, like a lantern upon dark waters, casts light not only outward but inward, illuminating both ruler and people alike. In the days that followed the Festival of Rivers, a more subtle lesson awaited Emperor Ashoka and his gentle companion. Though the kingdom of Magadha thrived beneath his care, the world is ever inclined to test the hearts of even the wisest. It began with a dispute, small yet potentially dangerous, among the merchants of Pataliputra. Two families, each claiming rights to a shipment of rare silks from distant ports, quarreled in such a manner that violence seemed imminent. Courtiers urged swift education. Emissaries of law demanded immediate judgment. Yet Ashoka, observing the flaccid faces of the litigants and the anxious murmurs of the city streets, understood that a hasty resolution might flame passion rather than quell them. It was then that the white elephant entered the courtyard of judgment, moving with calm deliberation. His presence alone commanded attention. Merchants and citizens alike paused, and the court fell into an unnatural quiet. Ashoka, seated upon his elevated dais, spoke not immediately. He allowed the elephant to tread among the disputants, each gentle step a reminder of dignity and restraint. "Observe," Ashoka said softly to his ministers, "that sometimes the presence of patience and virtue resolves more than the swift stroke of law." The elephant, with quiet deliberation, lingered near the younger merchant, a boy of gentle demeanor whose eyes sought guidance. The other merchant, observing the creature's deliberate movement, found his anger softened by the silent wisdom reflected in those luminous eyes. It was as if the elephant embodied the unspoken truth that reason alone cannot convey. Ashoka rose and addressed the disputants. "You have both labored to bring these silks to our fair city, yet it is not by arguments alone that fairness is established, but by consideration of integrity and care in all matters of trade. I will hear each account fully with honesty and patience, and deliver judgment only when understanding has been achieved." The merchant recounted their tale, each attentive to the other's words, and slowly, under the watchful gaze of both emperor and elephant, they discerned the errors of hasty assumptions. By the conclusion of the day, the shipment was rightly apportioned, and the families departed with newfound respect for the law tempered by reflection. Yet greater trials were soon to follow. In the northern forests of the kingdom, reports reached Ashoka of a white elephant that threatened the safety of nearby villages. This creature, untamed and fierce, had overturned carts and frightened travelers. Courtiers urged immediate capture or destruction, fearing harm to the people. Ashoka, however, recalled the lessons learned beside his white elephant, that fear and force alone are rarely the best solution. With careful thought, he dispatched a small party of trusted guides and the white elephant to lead the creature away from the villages and into open fields where it could be calmed. The journey was arduous. Rivers swelled from recent rains, and the forest was dense and shadowed. Yet the white elephant, majestic and unafraid, guided the wild creature with gentle gestures and slow, deliberate steps. At times, the forest echoed with the deep rumble of the wild elephant, but the white elephant remained composed, his presence a beacon of calm amid fear. After hours of careful patience, the wild elephant slowed, and the guides were able to secure it safely. Villagers watched from a distance, offered prayers of gratitude, for they had witnessed not the triumph of force, but the victory of gentleness and wisdom. That evening, as Ashoka returned to the palace, he walked alongside the white elephant through the gardens, their steps slow and reflective. The emperor spoke quietly, as one might confide in a trusted friend. Compassion is oftentimes the most difficult path, yet it is the one that bears the most enduring fruit. Strength may subdue, but virtue transforms. The elephant, with the soft sway of his head, seemed to acknowledge the truth of these words, and Ashoka, though ruler of a vast kingdom, felt himself humbled, reminded that leadership is not merely a matter of edict, but of example. Night fell upon the palace, and lanterns were lit along the corridors and courtyards. Ashoka, seated within his chamber, penned reflections upon the day's events, recording the deed of the white elephant, the courage of merchants, and the gentle triumph over the wild creature. These writings would later be remembered as lessons not only for rulers, but for all who seek wisdom in governance and in life. Yet the tale was far from complete, for even as virtue guided the Emperor's hand, destiny continued its quiet weaving, bringing new challenges that would test the harmony of heart, the depth of understanding, and the steadfastness of the human spirit. As the seasons shifted and the sun traced its familiar arc across the heavens, Emperor Ashoka continued to govern with a heart attentive to both law and compassion. Yet he knew that true wisdom is tested not in calm moments, but amid trials, small and great alike, that touch the lives of all who dwell under one's care. One morning, word arrived that the neighboring kingdom sought counsel from Ashoka regarding a dispute over water rights along the Ganges. Though some advisors pressed for a firm and immediate decree, the emperor recalled the lessons of patience, humility, and reflected imparted by his luminous companion. The white elephant, standing quietly nearby, seemed to embody the quiet counsel of the earth itself. Accompanied by the gentle creature, Ashoka journeyed to the borderlands. There he observed not only the argument over water, but also the concerns of the farmers, fishers, and villagers whose voices might otherwise be unheard. He listened with patience, weighing each account, discerning truth from assumption, and seeking a solution that preserved both justice and harmony. In the end, the dispute was resolved through equitable sharing, careful planning, and mutual understanding. The neighboring rulers departed with respect, and the villagers often prayed of gratitude. Ashoka, observing the unity restored, felt a familiar swell of quiet satisfaction, one that comes not from conquest or command, but from nurturing the welfare of those entrusted to him. That evening he returned to the palace gardens, the white elephant ambled beside him, each step measured, deliberate, and calm, lanterns glimmering in the fading light, casting gentle reflections upon the water and the marble pathways. Ashoka spoke softly, as one might speak to a confidant. Though kingdoms may rise and fall, and though human hearts are ever fraught with ambition and fear, The guidance of virtue endures. A ruler's strength is found not in the sword he wields, but in the care with which he tends to all living souls. The elephant, with the slight sway of his head and the quiet rumble of contentment, seemed to affirm his truth. Ashoka understood, as he often did in his moments of tranquil reflection, that the lessons of the world are rarely declared with pomp or trumpet. They are revealed quietly, in the stillness of observation, the patience of counsel, and the gentle correction of error. In time, the white elephant became more than companion to the emperor. He was a living emblem of patience, insight, and the subtle power of presence. Citizens and courtiers alike came to revere him, not as a spectacle, but as a reminder of the virtues that shape character and guide governance. Children would run alongside him in the gardens, laughing with delight, while elders spoke in hushed tones of the wisdom he inspired. Evenings in Pataliputra took on a gentle rhythm. The emperor walked beneath the lantern-lit corridors, reflecting upon each day's deeds, recalled lessons for prosperity, knowing that the deeds of both man and elephant might inspire future generations. And though the trials of rulership were never fully abated, Ashoka bore them with a steadiness born of reflection, guided by the serene wisdom of his extraordinary companion. And so it was that the legend of the white elephant endured, a tale not of battle or conquest alone, but of insight, compassion, and the quiet triumph over virtue, over fear. The people of Magadha would remember the gentle presence that moved beside their sovereign, a luminous creature whose quiet guidance illuminated hearts as much as the sun and moon illuminated the earth. Beneath the starlit sky, lanterns flickered softly across the palace grounds. Ashoka stood once more in the gardens, his heart tempered by patience and reflection, knew that the greatest victories are not always heralded by trumpet or drum. Some triumphs are all felt in the stillness of the night, in the restored harmony of a kingdom, and in the quiet lessons learned by those willing to observe and understand. And so, dear listener, our story begins anew in memory, carried gentle upon the winds of time, a whisper of virtue, patience, and the luminous companionship of a white elephant who walked quietly beside one of history's most enlightened rulers.